stage. Here we go. It's Tuesday, the 7th of October. This is Ecotastic 007, the James Bond edition. My name's Robin Yellow, and with me, as always, is Mr. Kit Knowles.
Hello, everybody.
And what have you been doing this evening, Kit?
Yeah, I might be a little bit late to the stage here. I've had an interesting family visit from my wife's aunties, who are distributed all over the world in America, California, and also Hong Kong, which is really exciting because I've been chin-wagging about the unrest over there, which is very interesting. But it also meant that I forgot about this and I've had a few wines.
Nobody needs to know that. And by the way, we do not endorse drinking, and if you do have to do it responsibly.
Absolutely.
Okay, or everything in moderation. I was at Loughborough University today, actually, talking about 3D simulation models.
Really? What were you doing with 3D models?
I was with the Dean of Computer Science at Loughborough University talking about 3D simulations.
Is this fluid dynamics?
No.
Okay.
Enough said. Let's get on with the news. First up, let me share my display. Okay, first up is a Guardian article from the 5th of October. Are green bonds as good as they seem? Now, green bonds work in a similar way to traditional bonds. They're issued and sold to investors by companies or governments to raise money in return for a specified rate of interest. And in the world of finance, they are long-term prospects, and proceeds must be used for projects with environmental benefits. Now, by the end of this year, it's expected that $40 billion of green bonds will have been unleashed on global markets. Not bad, since their first modest issue by the World Bank in 2008, and they've gone, in the words of The Guardian, from zero to hero. Touted at the recent New York Climate Change Summit as a means of keeping global warming under 2 degrees C. Kit, what happens at 2 degrees C?
Yeah, so 2 degrees C is the theoretical tipping point. It was the point where climatologists were kind of giving a threshold of between 0 degrees change all the way up to sort of 12 degrees change globally, and they tried to analyze the possible side effects of that. And those guys then collaborated with all sorts of other scientists covering all sorts of other tech, and they basically concluded that if we wanted to maintain our kind of westernized life with GPS, internet, other technologies, particularly around communications, we had to maintain a global temperature of less than 2 degrees C, on the basis that if we went above that, things like satellite technology would be one of the first things that starts to fail.
Really? Why is that?
I'm not actually sure, but it's the sort of thing. This is the guy to talk to about this is called Kevin Anderson. He's got lots of things all over the internet with regards to seminars and conferences, speeches that he's done. But he is the guy who runs the kind of climate institute based out of University of Manchester, which is the biggest centre for the study of climate in the UK. And
alma mater, in fact, wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know.
That's the university you went to in Latin.
Alma mater, really?
I believe so. Look, I might have got that wrong. My Latin is very rusty.
It sounds wonderful. I totally take it on face value.
Do you believe it?
I've never heard that, but yeah. So that institute, anyway, he studied it, and these are the sorts of things that he's claiming, and it's very kind of worrying. And he's like the ultimate doom and gloomer, and he's really good at scaring people. Yeah, well worth a watch. Kevin Anderson. So back to the point, above 2 degrees C, we can't maintain Western culture, Western civilization. We can't maintain our current trajectory economically or anything else. And so that was why it was selected. It was also, it's ridiculously ambitious. But I guess it's within the realms of possibility, although many would say we're already past that point of no return. The one thing to bear in mind, that 2 degrees doesn't sound like a great deal, The one thing to bear in mind is that a 2-degree rise, well, let's do it on the basis of a 4-degree rise, which is actually what we're predicted to hit in reality. If we hit a 4-degree rise, technology and satellites and everything else aside, what it actually translates to on land is very different to the 2 to 4 degrees. The 4 degrees globally, because the water is much higher levels of thermal mass than the land, you've got to bear in mind that globally, because we're 72%, I think, water and the rest land, it basically means that on land, that 4 degrees globally will mean a 12 degrees rise in temperature on land. And then you've got to look back to sort of year 2003 when we had the heat waves in Europe. 44,000 people were determined to have died directly as a result of the heat wave Europe-wide. And that was in, I think, in a matter of one day. And effectively, they're saying that if you took that scenario and added 12 degrees to it, you're now in a position where you're killing millions.
Potential life extinction event there.
It wouldn't be that on that scale, but you are talking millions as opposed to a few sort of tens of thousands distributed. When you start to hit 1 million people dying because of a climatic event, life will be very different to how we know.
Yes, then the investment will go up from $40 billion to whatever you want.
Yeah, well, I think by that point, financial carbon offsetting and any other forms of products that the financial institutions are going to kick out there are going to make very little difference.
Okay, let's move on to a tree hugger article entitled "Organic, Easily Recyclable Batteries Could Replace Lithium-Ion." Now, as you know, lithium-ion is the gold standard for batteries because it's easy to store a lot of energy, discharge in a light, small package compared to older battery types. The downside, of course, is that the materials that are used to make lithium-ion batteries are rare and not sustainable. And also, recycling has not really been properly addressed. Researchers at Uppsala University in Sweden have come up with a battery that reuses lithium from old batteries. Well, that sounds like a good idea. And incorporates organic, sustainable materials and is recyclable at the end of its life. Now, components of this battery apparently are made up from alfalfa and pine resin. Kit, your thoughts?
Well, so things like biomimicry and the kind of organic swap outs are always ideal. They've got the sustainable elements behind them, the recyclable elements, the biodegradable elements, all these sorts of things, and then the millions of years of evolution that people always like to tout as scientists that we've got behind them. You see this very often in I think it was about 5 years back, there was a big push in the photovoltaic world where people were considering using dyes which were coming out of plant matter, and they were basically recreating photosynthesis in the PV panel. So you could effectively put a piece of paper, it sounds unbelievable, but it was done. They put a piece of paper in a standard inkjet printer, and they put in a special dye into the ink cartridges, and they could print onto a piece of paper which has some wire inlaid into it, and they could print a PV cell, so a photovoltaic panel, a solar panel. They could print it from an inkjet printer. And this was all the same kind of thing where we're trying to work with dyes and mimic photosynthesis and other organic processes. So the idea of mixing minerals like lithium with pine resins and alfalfa and all these other elements, it's all possible. And fantastic if we can get it to work. The question is, what's the issue with efficiency? Because that's what killed the PV side of things, where we're going from efficiencies of 20+% theoretical, and we're coming down to sort of 5 to 7% theoreticals. So I wonder what happens with the efficiency of these batteries and their lifespan and everything along those lines. I have no idea. I've not looked into it.
It looks like the Great British Bake Off to me, with a little foil packet of something here with a plus and a minus on it. But good on you, Uppsala University, if that's something that you can crack. Well, it sounds like a good idea to me. Kit, I mean, I don't know whether you've got any facts about the amount of rare earth metals that are left or available or still in the ground. But lithium, there's only a finite supply of that.
Yeah, well, as with most of these kind of rarer, I mean, gallium is again, I'm sorry to keep on drawing it back to the PV side of things, but that was the metal that was most commonly used to make those sorts of things work. And there's a lot of these rare metals that we've actually already gone through during research, realizing that they're too rare, we can't get hold of them. So this, what we call it substitution, where you take a process that we know works to a certain level, and you try and substitute out the different elements that we can't source simply, easily, cheaply, renewably, and on that basis we're getting to a point where substitution has become the economist's best friend. This is going to branch off to a bit of a random one, but this all kind of plays into one of the biggest issues that we have at the moment, which is the fact that we're a kind of, the Western culture is driven by economics and the capitalist regime, and that concept relies upon two elements to continue. One is efficiency improvements. So everything, I don't know if you ever look at it, you showed the PV, I think last week's show, where it was, way up here in terms of cost and low efficiency and everything else, and it was just kind of, it's coming down and down and down, and the majority of that is to do with efficiency, and also on the other hand, it's the substitution element, making things cheaper. I mean, obviously the scale and the mass market and everything along those lines help, but it's the processes that bring that cost down massively. And it's what economists really rely upon, is coming to an engineer and saying, make this work more efficiently and build it cheaper by using less expensive, less rare materials. So this is an issue. It's something they've been doing for about 120 years, and basically it's coming to the end. We've substituted so many times already that we're running out of other places that we can go, and now substitutions that we've got available to us have massive impacts on efficiency or performance or durability or something along those lines. So that's why a lot of people are now turning to the kind of the bio world, in that potentially we could get sort of enzymes and proteins and other organic structures to fill these gaps without relying upon resource-strapped elements like lithium, like gallium.
I'll tell you another thing that's running out is helium. So helium, of course, you discover it in the ground. It's released. Where does it go? Straight through the atmosphere into space. Now, what they've started doing now, for example, filling balloons for parties, is recovering helium that's held in MRI scanners, or used to call MRI scanners. And again, so we're getting into the classic eco cycle of reduce, replace, and then offset finally. But I know, Kit, we only do offsetting as a method of last resort.
Absolutely, it's definitely going to be an issue for the future. We're going to be getting to this position where if we are reliant upon these rare resources, do you know, it's not even need to be rare. I mean, so University of Manchester, sorry to bring it back to that again, but yes, absolutely. We had a lecturer there who was a world expert in sustainability, and she was called Adiza Azipagic, I think, and she had a very interesting model that was looking at different resources in terms of their sustainability, and she was showing that aluminium is one of those resources that we currently, just in terms of our current demand, requires 13 planet Earths to be sustainable. So on that basis, even common materials like aluminium are going to become much more expensive, particularly considering if you try to produce aluminium. Oh yeah, there you go. Adiza Ajipagic. If you try to produce aluminium, it requires 256 megajoules of energy per kilogram of aluminium produced. Compare that to steel at 50, and wood, I think it's about 1 or 2. You can see how the cost of energy going up will absolutely kill aluminium, on top of the fact that it's also becoming a much more scarce resource. which is why you've seen recycled quantities go from a couple of percent to above 80% on average globally. So that, just watch out. All these things are becoming much more difficult to produce.
Great insights. It's now the exciting part of the show where we delve into Kit's technology corner, and we've got quite a few technologies to get through today. So let's do it as quick as we can. But the first one is absolutely fascinating. I can't wait to find out what the ZOT Gravitation-Water-Vortex-Power-Plant is. But goodness me, what's going on here, Kit?
The Zootolutera. I think so. Yeah, it's a really interesting hydrotech. It's something that I've been dabbling in for years in terms of looking into feasibility for the UK market. It's not come to the UK yet, but I'm quite excited about it because one of the big issues with the kind of government's approach to hydro is that they've already identified any water sources that are applicable for hydro, and it's actually very, very limited. So they've already said that you can only build hydro on these places. It's very limited where you can do it, how you can do it, and they've kind of predetermined the extent in which hydro is a possible technology solution for the future. And what's annoying about that is it's diverting people away from the potential of using sort of unconventional water sources as potential, large generation energy sites. So what this gravitational water vortex power plants do is that they can work just on a couple of meters of head, in fact less than 2 meters of head, which is below that of any other sort of.
When you say head, what do you mean?
Just simply, so if you have a lake at this height and you have an outflow which finishes down here, the distance that it drops is the meters of head that gives you an energy potential, and it's a factor of between head and the flow rate that gives you your total kilowatt potential for the water source. So the idea being that with this you can use low head, high flow results to produce a huge amount of energy, which is a lot of different water sources that the government have already sort of.
So you've got head water coming in here, creating this vortex, and the tail water, aptly named, is presumably going at a slower speed, and the energy is taken out here.
Yeah, that's it. And the beauty of generator. The beauty of this system is not only is it applicable in a lot of cases where others are not applicable, it is also requires a very coarse screen on it. So that's one of the biggest issues with hydro, is the maintenance involved. This is massively maintenance reduced. I'd say about 1/10 of the amount of maintenance involved with most of the other hydro systems. And also it's fantastic from a biodiversity perspective, where you've got a free flow for fish to go upstream or downstream without any kind of hindrance or potential likelihood for being chopped up, whisked up. So it's fantastic from an ecological perspective as well. Oh, there you go.
Well, that's some cunning Germans doing some stuff with fish. Like Danube salmon. Maybe not Germany. There is a couple of Danube salmon. Great, that's fascinating. I had actually seen this before. But again, like any piece of machinery, my concern would be, because it's got moving parts, it's going to require maintenance. Whatever you say about it not interfering with the fish in the river, some creature is going to get harmed, isn't it?
Well, it's slower rotational patterns as well, because it's higher torque. I mean, the other thing about let's take it back to water wheels, right? You've got a wheel and you basically dip it in a stream and the stream turns it around. The contact that it has with the stream is only sort of a very small, a meter of the stream in contact. So to make that more efficient, what they did is they brought the stream at high level and then they dropped it over the top, and it gave them the kind of a chord, a portion of the radius of the wheel to be in contact with it, and they derive more energy from it. And they're doing all sorts of things, undershots, overshots, and all different elements were considered to enable them to get more and more efficiency out of it. The beauty of this vortex is that because it's coming in at one side of a bowl and then turning around, imagine how many times this water, you know, if you were to just follow one molecule, 1 liter of water, imagine how many times that gets whisked around this vortex before it gets spat out the bottom. And what you do is you dip a whisk-like impeller down into it. And that's being span around. So the contact with that 1 liter of water is meter after meter after meter. So you get, in terms of energy efficiency, you get an incredibly high derived efficiency.
Oh, that's very good. So we should expect to see these in the future. Let's move on to the next technology, chem-free. Now, you mentioned concrete and the impact of concrete, the environmental impact of concrete on last week's show. What's the special, or what's the bad about concrete?
Concrete is, out of all of the different sort of common building materials, things like aluminium are very, very extreme, as I've just stated, but cement is also very, very bad. Generally, the rule of thumb is that to produce 1 ton of concrete, you produce 1 ton of carbon dioxide. In terms of that's what's released emission-wise into the environment. So the idea of something like the CEM-free here is that you basically are deriving waste materials from power plants, and you use that as the binding element, because Portland cement is where all this carbon relief is. Sorry, I made a mistake just then. It wasn't a ton of concrete, it's a ton of Portland cement produces 1 ton of carbon. So the idea is that it's the Portland cement that's doing the damage, and so the idea is replacing that with a byproduct from this kind of power plant output enables them to still get all the binding properties and everything else you want from the concrete, but you do so without having any problems along the lines of carbon release. It's much more carbon neutral.
Oh, very interesting.
So that is a classic example, folks, of substitution.
Substitution, indeed it is. Let's move on to this is a bit of a comedy effect here, and I had a lot of fun in the pre-show queuing this up, because as far as I can see, it looks like a bunch of Germans again. That looks like German to me, having some kind of weird threesome in front of a wood-burning stove. Now, the kind of preamble to this is they've got a wood-burning stove with some fire in the top, and then the two of them lie down, and then this lady walks in, fiddles with a knob, and then a jet engine appears underneath. What's going on here, Kit?
This video, in fairness, came out after I purchased one of these devices, not before.
Oh, you've got one yourself?
In my own, yes. Wow. Which is why I've put this up here. It's so bad, corny videos aside, with sort of the German ladies in there, one blonde, one brunette, I happen to notice.
Whatever. Going back to the 70s again.
I know.
It's the my wife puts the washing on debacle all over again.
Yes. What was that? Was that episode 6? Or I love that one.
We don't talk about episode 6.
We don't talk about that. So yeah, it's a fantastic device. Basically, it's got some incredible technologies in it, some incredible innovations. What you're seeing there, which nicely paused there, Robin, is the top flame is like a normal chamber for combustion in a wood-burning stove. You stack wood in it, you light the wood produces flame, heat, everything else. The issue with a normal flame is that in that kind of wafty, yellowy, orangey flame at the top there, you've got a lot of unburnt gases. And that those unburnt gases normally get shoved up the chimney and pop out the top. So if you had an open fire, you've got somewhere in the region of 28 to 32% efficiency from a 300 odd degree flame. If you start to step that up to above 400, you start to get about the 50% efficiency, which is what you get in those kind of black grape fires. If you take it up to the level of the modern day high performance devices, so that's 80% plus, you're probably hitting 750 degree flame temperatures. With this device, they are capturing all of those unburnt gases, and they are bringing it through that knob, as you say, that's being pushed down. It redirects the airflow. So instead of it going up through the bottom of the fire, combusting and then going out the chimney, which is standard, it brings the combustion oxygen over the top, down through the middle of the flame, which then it superheats.
There she's grasping the knob.
The knob, yeah, superheats the center and produces this flame, this downward-facing jet flame. Which, if you get it up to temperature, in mine, I can turn that flame blue, which is quite incredible, burning wood and getting such efficient burns. And then those horns at the bottom for the horny devils out there.
This kind of array of metal sort of.
Yeah, I call them the horns because they start to glow red like a devil. All of them start to glow red as they get heated up, but they act as catalytic surface. So you've basically got a primary combustion chamber at the top, secondary combustion, which captures anything that was missed by the primary combustion at a much hotter temperature, so it burns more of those elements like creosotes that you can't normally get energy out of, and that normally line your flue, which has caused all your chimney fires and the cleaning requirements. It burns all of those too, and then any particulate matter gets taken out by those devil horns at the bottom through the catalytic surface reactions. Very smart.
It is very smart indeed. Let's move on to the final piece of technology, and then it's over. Now, this is a bit of a comedy bit of technology. It's from I think it's a Canadian company, it may be American, but it's called Alteros, and it is an aerostat with a wind turbine in it. Now, the clever thing is that you can put it outside. You can see here it's inflated on the back of a truck, and it will deploy, I think, up to a couple of 100 feet, where it will take those more reliable winds up high and produce electricity, which can do several things. One, it can generate enough electricity for it to act as a wireless tower. Or it can provide an amount of electricity where you need it to a remote worker. Now, as part of my work in another life, I have actually looked at these devices. There's a little video here we can watch. And there's some issues with it. It struggles a bit in the weather. It's got to come down. Any weather, it's got to come down. If there's no wind, it doesn't work. It's enormous. So actually driving it around the back of the truck is quite hard. If you get a side wind, you're over on your side. Interesting. Why did you pick this technology, Kit?
Okay, so the idea of bats, which is what this technology is termed, the buoyant, I can't even remember what it is, buoyant aerated technology. Totally made that up.
Yeah, buoyant aerated, that's what it is.
Yeah. It's basically, the idea is there's if you can go, I think it's on the homepage, or no, sorry, technology page. There's the best diagrammed, high altitude, that's it. The best diagram to explain why this technology should be absolutely a game changer. So you see that curve there. Basically what they're doing is they're able to extend it right the way up to 600 meters, and at 600 meters the wind power density is exponentially higher than anything else. So you can have a tiny swept area like they've got there, but such continuous, regular, repeatable, it's just incredible power that's so dense that they can drive these high intensity turbines and produce just as much, if not more, energy than some of these absolute monster, 120 meter swept area turbines.
However, when my swept area Siemens turbine encounters a gust of wind, or the wind gets too fierce, it turns itself off and aligns the blades so the mechanism won't damage itself. This thing will throw an articulated lorry into the air.
What the idea, though, is, and I'm not sure if this has come before or after your experience, is that those cables that you can see in that picture are connected to this ground device, which is it's basically, you can see it on the back of that lorry. That's what the lorry does, is it drops this ground trailer off. And the ground trailer is very interesting because now what they're doing is they're building all the technology into the ground trailer. So yeah, you can see that in the background there. what it's doing is that is containing any batteries or grid tie or any of the electrical technologies, but also it has these giant winches on it, and it has a wind station connected to this device that's up high, and all it does, it can react very, very quickly. All it does is it reels it down, so it controls the height of the device depending upon the wind speed to give it a completely regular, consistent generation point. So if the wind picks up, it just gets lower and lower and lower and lower, and therefore continues to operate at a sort of optimal efficiency.
That's great. Well, a fun way to end the show, though I think you were taking it more seriously than me, Kit.
And I've had some wine as well.
And you've had some wine, so you've had a great evening. All things in moderation. Alcohol is addictive. So listen, that was Ecotastic episode 007, the James Bond edition. I was going to play a little James Bond music, but I thought we might get copyright infringed on Monty Norman's theme tune, so I didn't do it. Also, I don't know how to do it. Kit, great show again. I'll leave you to the rest of that bottle of wine. Tune in next week, and remember, everybody, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and in there you'll also find a little link to enable you to do a podcast subscription on iTunes, and you'll see that in the artwork at the top of the page. Kit, great show. Thanks very much, buddy.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Indeed. And another one is in the can. We'll be back next week. Goodbye.
Bye.